All right, and welcome back to WBCR 88.3 The Saints. I'm Justin Kenny as always, and with me tonight we have a very, very special guest, especially if you're a fan of sports and especially the sport of soccer. We have Dan Courtemanche from Major League Soccer. So, Dan, thank you for being with us.
Great to be here, Justin. Appreciate you having me on the program.
Well, thank you for agreeing to do this. So, why don't you start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Uh, well, uh, no problem. I work at Major League Soccer. I'm the head of communications, so I work with journalists, with social content influencers, work with our marketing team. Ultimately, my focus is on increasing the relevance of Major League Soccer, our clubs, our players, and also enhancing the brand reputation to inspire people to consume Major League Soccer, whether that's watching games on TV, buying tickets, going on our social accounts, going to the league's website, checking out the matches on Apple TV, on MLS Season Pass, or on Fox TV. Really just inspiring soccer fans and general sports fans to check out Major League Soccer.
Yeah. So, right now, obviously, the United States is at kind of a weird point in its relationship with soccer. We have the men's World Cup coming next year, along with Canada and Mexico we're hosting. But men's soccer still hasn't taken off, but arguably we have the greatest soccer team on the women's side of the world. Um, how how do you kind of see the World Cup coming next year? How do you see it helping the men's team? Do you think it could help growth of men's soccer in the United States or just soccer as a whole? What makes you excited for that opportunity next year?
Yeah, so a few things. Look, it is by far the most exciting time or period in North American soccer history. I can say that because I've been involved in 33 seasons in four different soccer leagues, including the first iteration of women's professional soccer and then 27 at Major League Soccer. I will tell you, when it comes to the popularity of soccer, people my age, I'm in my late 50s,
Yeah.
people my age, soccer ranks when you ask them, what's your favorite sport to watch? It ranks sixth or seventh. When you ask people under the age of 35, tied for number two with basketball behind football. So the urban myth of soccer hasn't made it. And it's about 15 to 20 years old because
Yeah.
there are more than 80 million soccer fans in this country. And that's defined by people who will watch a league match at least once a year, whether that's going to a stadium or watching it on television. So it's not the World Cup watcher. It's somebody who actually pays attention to a league match. And there are different levels of avidity. And when you think about 80 million, that's larger than the population of Spain. It's larger than the population of England,
Yeah.
almost as large as the population of France. So there's a really, really strong opportunity for soccer in our country. Certainly at the national team level, the women's team has been just fantastic since winning their first Women's World Cup in the early 90s. The men, we went to the quarterfinals in 2002, had a good performance in Qatar in 2022, and really, really excited about what could happen with the World Cup coming to North America, United States, Canada, and Mexico in 2026.
Yeah. I mean, I myself am one of the people who's very excited about that coming. I'm waiting for tickets to come out to try to get tickets to one of the games because I want to go to see at least one of the games. Qatar was a great experience just to watch on TV, but I mean, I know a lot of people are currently very much excited about our new men's head coach, whose name I will admit, I'm still learning and still trying to learn how to pronounce and everything. Um, but I know everybody, especially with the men's team, this is the most excited, like you point out, that they've been in years.
Yeah, look, we're fortunate that look, Mauricio Pochettino, he's the head coach. He came from most recently Chelsea. He was at Paris Saint-Germain. He was at Tottenham. He's Argentine. Certainly was a player, played in the World Cup back in the day, and is really a terrific guy. And I've been fortunate to spend some time with him. He is really, really smart, really, really strategic. Has put together a great staff and had a great staff around him, and is really looking at all aspects of how he's going to put the team together.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate, Major League Soccer has served as the foundation for the U.S. national team with, whether it's players from MLS currently in the league or players who came up through our academies, like Tyler Adams, the captain of the U.S. men's national team. He plays in the Premier League right now for Bournemouth, But he
Yeah.
started in the Red Bulls Academy, then he went to Red Bulls 2, he went to New York Red Bulls, he went to Red Bull Leipzig, and eventually ended up in the Premier League. Tyler's a great guy, and we're fortunate to have that system that is really going to help us in 2026 and really beyond.
Yeah. Okay. So it's Pochettino. So I'm finally learning the correct way of pronouncing his name because I didn't
That's
want to say in the interview because I didn't want to butcher his name in
that's all right.
an interview as a disrespect to him. But excuse me. One thing I really liked about Pochettino when I saw his press conference after the game against Panama was that they asked him a question about why this one player, I can't remember who it was in this one spot that he hadn't really been excelling in. And Pochettino pretty much said like it's to get his confidence back up. So it really just shows that he's willing to put more care and more time into this instead of just putting like, and also that he has a long-term view of this. It's not just like, oh, we're trying to like, oh, just win this one game. He kind of realizes just from even statements like that, this is going to be a long road to like basically that city on top of the hill or whatever you want to call it to getting deep into the World Cup or bringing respect to the U.S. men's national team. Um, but one thing that I've noticed, and you brought this up earlier with people um, basically my age, because I'm 26, being big soccer fans, or at least consuming one match per year, is that it seems to be mostly interest in soccer overseas. There is some with the MLS, but the MLS kind of still has this image, although Messi's kind of changing that a little bit, this image of just being like the retirement league. It's not as great competition as it is over in like the Premier League or the other European leagues. How do you kind of fix that image of the MLS as you move forward?
Well, look, I think it's continuing education. The second highest attended league in the world last year was Major League Soccer behind the Premier League.
Yeah.
When you look at World Cup 2022, the highest numbers of players from any professional soccer league in the Western Hemisphere came from Major League Soccer. And Major League Soccer had 37 players in the World Cup in Qatar. That was just outside the top five traditional European leagues. And the average age of international players coming to Major League Soccer the last 5 years has been slightly under 24. So
Yes.
it's continuing education just to let people know that while Lionel Messi, arguably the greatest player to ever play, is in his mid to late 30s, the average age of players coming into the league is much younger. And you think about there were two players last year in Major League Soccer who played for Argentina's World Cup winning team in 2022. One was Lionel Messi. The other was Thiago Almada. He played for Atlanta United. He now
Yeah.
plays in France. And Thiago Almada, when he came to Atlanta United, was 21. And that's really what is occurring in Major League Soccer. People know the Messis, they know the Luis Suarez's, but the reality is the vast, vast majority of the guys are in the early 20s coming into the league.
Yeah. And I mean, like it's kind of like you bringing up the image that like, oh, everybody knows the Messies. And it's kind of just like the one thing similarity that kind of comes to mind for me is the NBA, when everybody always says that the NBA is a star-driven league. Whereas like the NFL, you got the Shield and it's the corporation basically everybody knows. The NBA is more star driven, where it's just like it's the Kobe's, it's the LeBrons, it's the Jordans, the ones that really drive the league, and it's really the stars in that league that really get the butts in the seats. Um, Obviously Messi's huge to the MLS. When I first saw the story that Messi was signing with Miami, to be honest with you, I first thought it was fake because I'm just like, there's no way Messi's signing with Major League Soccer. Um, but then once my uncle told me, like, no, that's real, it then became something that, like, oh, this is amazing. How big was Messi signing with MLS? Was it a surprise for you? Did you kind of know before it broke? And what does it mean for kind of like marketing and growing the league going forward?
Yeah, look, Messi's been a game changer in Major League Soccer. The arguably the greatest player to ever play the game. Could have gone anywhere. He had options certainly in Saudi Arabia that we read about, certainly going back to Barcelona where he had such great success. And ultimately he chose Major League Soccer. He made Major League Soccer his league of choice going to Inter Miami. And he's been terrific. He's over delivered on expectations on and off the field, and we're really really fortunate to have him in the league. He's like the Taylor Swift of soccer.
Yeah.
When he goes places, he draws a crowd, whether it's playing for Argentina or Inter Miami. So it's terrific. And when you think about it, the last 2 years have seen global icons like Lionel Messi or Olivier Giroud, who's France's highest leading scorer in their history of their national team. But just look, just this year, you got Chucky Lozano, one of the greatest team players ever for Mexico. He's 29, comes to
Yeah.
San Diego. Wilfried Zaha coming to Charlotte. A guy by the name of Emmanuel Latte Law. He's 26 years old. He was playing in England. Atlanta paid $22 million for this guy. His first two games for Atlanta, he scored 2 goals. He's fast, he's dynamic, he's exciting. So, Messi coming here really, really inspired even more players to take a hard look at coming to Major League Soccer.
Yeah. I mean, I still like I said before, I thought it was fake when the headline first broke. I was like, there's no way. But then immediately when I found out that it was true, I immediately texted my buddy and we were like both surprised because we both go to at least like even though I'm in New York, we go to a Boston Revolution game every year or almost every year because let's face it, it's easier to get to Boston than it is to get to New York City. But and instead of I want to go see him, but um, you bring up a lot of these things with like the growth of soccer going forward. And one of the things I look at basically as myself as an MBA is the business growth of soccer. And one thing I kind of find interesting about it is about how the most powerful league in the United States, um, it's debatable where it stands in the world, but one of the most powerful league in the United States is the NFL. And you see a lot of these NFL owners, whether it be David Tepper, North Carolina, Stan Kroenke, Robert Kraft, all these owners buying Arthur Blank, buying MLS teams. And you see kind of the name value of those people coming into that league. Um, how do you kind of view that name value from the top of the business leaders coming into MLS and the investment that comes from them?
Yeah, look, Justin, we're fortunate that, and we believe, and I think you could probably say factually correct, clearly
Yeah,
unbiased, that we have the best ownership group in sports. So you think about it, 9 out of the last 10 Super Bowls featured an MLS owner. Thank you, New England Patriots, Kansas City Chiefs, but you also had
yeah,
Arthur Blank and the Falcons, Stan Kroenke and the Rams, and we've got the Allen family who own the Seahawks, have part ownership in the Sounders. But you go even broader than that. We have Major League Baseball owners, NBA owners, we have NHL owners.
yep,
We have City Football Group that owns, I think, at least 13 professional soccer teams across the world now, including Manchester City. New York City Football Club was their second team after Manchester City. You have the owners of Red Bull Leipzig. You have the owners of Swansea, the owners of Bologna in Italy. They also own our CF Montreal. So we're fortunate that we have a really, really diverse mindset when it comes to our ownership group, and certainly they have the capital to invest in our league. We've seen more than $10 billion invested in stadiums and training facilities in Major League Soccer in the last 25 years. And it's starting to pay off. And you talk about the business aspect of it. Sportico, which is a sports industry trade publication,
yeah,
came out last year and said of the top 50 most valuable soccer clubs in the world, 20 are in Major League Soccer. 9 are in the Premier League, 6 are in Italy. So when you look at the rising value of professional soccer throughout the world, Major League Soccer is certainly, risen leaps and bounds over the last 10 to 15 years.
yeah. And I mean, you bring up like all these owners too, and I mean, like before they got the MLS ship, they were over in Europe in soccer. I mean, like Kroenke owns Arsenal, John Henry owns Liverpool, and then you have what's his name from the Khan family. I can't remember the team they own. But yeah, a lot of owners for years have been involved in soccer. Although Stan Kroenke owns a team in almost every single sport, it seems. But
And they're
but
successful too when you think about the
yeah,
Rams and you
the
think
Rams,
about
the
the Nuggets
Nuggets.
and Arsenal
He
and
he won the lacrosse league too at one point, I
yeah,
believe too.
that's impressive.
Yeah, almost every team he owns has been has won at least one championship though. That's something. Um, I mean, he's obviously a hell of a businessman too, but I mean, like that's just impressive. Every team you own win the championship.
Yeah.
Um,
2010 MLS Cup champions with the Colorado Rapids, which he owns.
yeah. Um, so we brought up like the stars of soccer. I mean, obviously, I'm a soccer fan, but I'm not a deep, deep soccer fan, so I'm not going to know every single name. I'm pretty much, to use like an NBA analogy, like I used earlier, would only really know like the Kobe, the LeBrons, or like in soccer, the Messis, the Ronaldos, the Beckhams, those people. And it seems to me, from somebody who's not like who doesn't know every single player, is that almost a lot of the stars are more foreign players, minus maybe like a Landon Donovan, um, for the men. And it seems that a lot of stars that we get marketed towards in the United States are foreign-born players. And nothing against those players. I mean, they're obviously amazing, fantastic players. But I feel like for some people, it kind of breaks the connection that they might feel with them when if they're not like a U.S. like an American grown player, because it doesn't seem like it's an American sport then. Have you encountered any situations like that, or do you feel like that's an issue going forward, is trying to get more American-made stars, or do you feel like you're at a good place as is in that situation?
Yeah, yeah, you always want to make progress, but we're fortunate we've seen many, many players come out of MLS academies, certainly Americans, but also we have three Canadian teams. You think about Alphonso
Yeah,
Davies. He signed a professional after playing in the Vancouver Whitecaps Academy, he signed a professional contract to play with their second team at 15, played for the first team, and then when he was, I think, 19, transferred to Bayern Munich. He's one of the best left backs in the world. Now, and I think at some point in time he'll probably come back and play for his hometown Whitecaps. And that's a success story for us, just as is Tyler Adams playing for Bournemouth in the Premier League. Or
yeah,
even though Christian Pulisic didn't play in Major League Soccer, that's a success story. The fact that he's AC Milan's best player. I was fortunate to spend some time with Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who works on the sporting side for AC Milan, in December. And he said Christian Pulisic is one of the best players in Italy, and if he continues to refine his game, could be a top 20 player in the world. So there's talent out there, and look, you Google, top 14 or 15-year-old player in the world, and Kevin Sullivan from the Philadelphia Union pops up, and he came out of
yeah,
their academy. He has a brother who's 20 who plays on the team, Quinn Sullivan. He has two older twin brothers who play in the academy. They're clearly a soccer family. The other thing I say is I mentioned earlier that Lionel Messi is a game changer. I think he's going to be a game changer as an American with what he does with players on the field. And the example I give is Benjamin Kromashki. He's a
yeah.
19-year-old who plays for Inter Miami. His family's from Argentina, but Benjamin was born in Miami, and he's playing alongside Messi every day, and he's getting better. So much that after the first week, Leo went to him and said, Benjamin, you got to think more and run less because one of the most people don't realize Messi was second in the World Cup in 2022 in scoring behind Mbappe. He led the World Cup in two stats. One was scanning, the number of times he scans the field. And people say Messi sees things like 5 times ahead of the rest of us. And the rest of us meaning professional players. I have colleagues who played against him, and they said his speed of thought is unbelievable. Yes, he's quick. Yes, he has great skills. Yes, he has a great shot. But his speed of thought, he's like 5 times faster than everybody else. The other stat that he led the World Cup in, walking. He picks his spots. And he told Benjamin Kromashki, he's like, you're running around too much. You got to think. You got to be strategic. And those little nuances, when we see Benjamin Kromashki scoring a goal for the United States in the 2026 World Cup or 2030, that's going to warm my heart because I'm going to be like, he was playing next to Messi, and that impacted the U.S. national team.
Yeah. Another thing, and I kind of want to switch gears here because I'd be kind of a miss coming from the Albany, New York area if I did not talk about kind of like a minor league system, because one thing about this area in sports is that this area loves minor league sports and has been arguably one of the top markets, if not the top market, for producing stars and winning in profession in minor league sports, because Albany has arguably the greatest arena football player of all time, and the Albany Patroons produced Phil Jackson, George Carl Musburger as head coaches of the Albany Patroons. So we've had a pretty good track record. But how, for those who don't know, within like those who may not follow MLS closely or really know much about MLS, Major League Soccer, can you kind of go into how the MLS's like minor league system works? Like, is it similar to something such as baseball? Would you guys do a little different? You talk about the academies. How does it all work and come together?
Yeah, the best example is we're a little similar to the NBA, but we're much more integrated than any other North American professional sports league. So the way that we're similar to the NBA is we have our version of the G League. It's called MLS Next Pro. And they actually kick off tonight, season 4. So it's relatively new, 4 seasons in. And, the young guys are playing in MLS Next Pro, and we've seen since it started, 160 players go from MLS Next Pro to MLS, playing for the first team, including a guy like Benjamin Kromaski or Patrick Schulte, who plays for the Columbus Crew. Those guys are now playing for the U.S. national team, but they started off in MLS Next Pro, our version of the G League. Underneath that, you have the youth system. Every MLS team, all 30 teams, have a youth academy that goes from under 19 to under 13, and some clubs go as low as under 8. And they're developing players for the future. And if you're a player developed in the Red Bulls Academy, you don't go through the college draft. The Red Bulls have the opportunity to sign you directly from their academy, which they've done. They signed Tyler Adams when he was 16 years old. He didn't go to college and play college soccer. He didn't go through a draft. He went straight to the pros, and that is a little similar to baseball or hockey, maybe, where they go from high school to straight to the pros. And then, as part of MLS Next, the youth league, well, those 30 teams have to have players to play against. So you have elite clubs throughout the United States and Canada that compete in that league. There are 16,000 kids who compete in MLS Next. That's the youth league. And then finally, we have MLS Go. That's our version of recreational soccer for young kids. I think they have junior NBA, they have NFL flag. Well, we have MLS Go. So you start at the real rec level, 5 and 6 years old, at MLS Go. And then you develop your talents. You go to MLS Next, which is highly competitive, best youth league in the United States and Canada, and they play in tournaments against Real Madrid. They play in tournaments against Manchester United, and teams like FC Dallas and Philadelphia Union in the last 5 years are beating Manchester United, Real Madrid, and teams from Mexico. And then you go to MLS Next Pro, and then you go to MLS, and then it's soccer. There are dozens and dozens of soccer leagues around the world, and you
Yeah.
might be like Tyler Adams and say, I want to go play in Germany for Red Bull Leipzig, or I want to go to the Premier League and play for Bournemouth. So, soccer players have a lot of options.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes me wonder just then if you have these academies, how those players get selected for those academies versus like going to like a college team, for instance. Like this is a college radio station, CNN has a college soccer team. How are you selected for those academies? And then like obviously you said if you go to the academies, you get basically signed, so you don't go to college. How does the kind of selection process work?
Yeah, and just to be clear, there are a lot of great players coming out of college soccer these days. And also to be clear, just because you play for an MLS Academy team doesn't mean you're going to sign a professional contract. There are
Yeah.
plenty of guys who play for the Red Bulls Academy and they go to college, but then the Red Bulls have the right of refusal. They don't have to go into the draft. They can go back and play for their hometown team. Like Sean Davis came up through the Red Bulls Academy, went to Duke for 4 years, and then went back to the Red Bulls. Now he's played for Nashville and LA Galaxy since then. But that's an example. So, you know, guys coming up through the system, they have plenty of options. And how do you get selected? Well, there's 16,000 players competing in MLS Next. I'm actually at my son's soccer practice right now. He plays for an MLS Next team called Downtown United in New York City. They play against New York City Football Club. They play against the Red Bulls. In 2 weeks, they'll be playing against the New England Revolution Academy team. So the MLS Youth Academy teams have to play independent clubs. And then you again, you have 16,000 kids in that system that you're looking at. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities. And then through other leagues, we actually next year we're forming another tier of MLS Next that'll add 20,000 more kids to the system that coaches will be able to look at on a regular basis.
Yeah. Obviously, all this development in the training and development of players, especially young players, is very exciting um, for men's soccer in the United States. Um, Obviously, the United States with women were viewed as like arguably the top team in the world. The men's team always seems to lag behind. Now, I want to ask you a little about the U.S., how the world views the U.S. in soccer. because obviously, like I said, the women's team is top of the line. Men's team tends to lag behind. It's the same thing where we have like with the Olympic basketball, where the United States has been ahead for years, but now it seems like the rest of the world's kind of catching up. How does the rest of the world kind of view U.S. soccer? Does it view it as kind of like catching up? Does it still view it as the little brother? How does the rest of the world kind of view American soccer, would you say?
Ultimately, you'd have to ask the rest of the world, but the people that I speak would say caught up. And you
Yeah,
look at our national team, it's made up of some really talented players in MLS, guys who came up through MLS academies that are now playing in Europe for teams like Juventus, AC Milan, playing in the Premier League, playing in the Bundesliga for Borussia Dortmund. So, you have a lot of diversity with players playing at some of the top clubs in the world. But the proof is in the pudding. Let's see how we do in World Cup 2026. We made
yeah,
it out of our group in Qatar. We lost to a really good team in the Netherlands. But in World Cup 2026, we will see. Hey,
yeah.
Justin, just so you
Yes,
know, my computer says I have like 19% battery life.
yes.
So I just want to manage from a time standpoint. And you might want to just at some point ask me a question like it's the end, just in case we get cut off.
Yeah, we have. I was just about to get to that. We have about 10 minutes left anyway.
Okay,
So, yeah, if it starts getting close, just let me know and we'll end it. But
perfect.
we have
I know
about,
we're taping this, so you can edit this part out.
yeah, we have about 10 or so minutes left. So another question I want to ask you about is about women's sports, and especially soccer is kind of viewed as a woman's sport within the United States, but we see obviously the NWSL. Um, the women's team has won multiple World Cups. But we see across the board this huge expansion and growth of women's sports, whether it be like swimming with Katie Ledecky or basketball with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. But we also see this growth within the attention with soccer. With yourself being the head of communications with the Major League Soccer, how does that make you feel? Does it excite you to see this kind of growth within the women's sport, especially within a sport like soccer, where women's soccer has been strong, but still growing at such an exponential rate?
Yeah, a few things. Look, I have three sisters, and they all played sports, and they would say that helped shape who they are. I'm fortunate. I attended the '99 Women's World Cup opening game and final. I attended 2003 Women's World Cup, 2015 Women's World Cup in Canada, and I am a huge fan of the U.S. women's team, and I consume the NWSL, and I go check out my home team, Gotham FC, on a regular basis, and have some friends who used to work with me at Major League Soccer now work for Gotham and throughout the NWSL, and what they've done is terrific, and how they've grown the league. We actually have four MLS owners who also own teams in the NWSL, so there's some crossover there.
Yeah,
And then, earlier in my career, I worked for the first iteration of women's professional soccer. It was called the Women's United Soccer Association. And I worked with some of the greats from Mia Hamm to Brandy Chastain to Julie Foudy to Tiffany Milbrett. They were the real pioneers who set the tone for the sport. And I still see them regularly. In fact, Mia Hamm is a part owner of LAFC in Major League Soccer. So pretty much every LAFC game, I go out there and I see Mia. And look, I'm also someone who I have family in Indianapolis. And what did I do when I visited last summer? I went and saw Caitlin Clark play the New York Liberty. Now, my hometown Liberty lost, but she had the first triple double in WNBA rookie history, and it was awesome. So yeah, look, I'm a firm believer that a rising tide lifts all boats, and women's soccer doing well is only going to benefit all of us in soccer. And then, I'm a sports fan. I love to watch
yeah,
great athletes, and there are so many out there, whether it's the WNBA, whether it's NWSL, or the many other competitors out there.
yeah. And I mean, like I mean, I'm thinking about this as from a guy standpoint, where it's kind of just like it's exciting and great to see all this happen. But for years, I don't know why this is, but it always just seemed like soccer was the first option in America that you sign up your daughter for, but not for your son. It always, not many would have interest in signing their sons up for soccer. It would always be some other sport. It would kind of be like the last sport in line, unless your family was a huge soccer fan. But for women especially, it's always been kind of like the number one sport that you want to get your daughter to in America, it seems. Um, why do you think it's had such that high level of branding with women, and especially women's sports within the United States.
Yeah, look, soccer from a participation standpoint has generally ranked right alongside basketball as the highest number of participants at the youth level. And it's boys and girls, and it has been that way for 30 plus years. But the great thing is the sport where you just need a ball and you got to a
Yeah,
field. You can set up your own goals. It's you don't have to be like some physical specimen to play. I mean, it certainly helps. But you think about the three greatest players to ever play the game, Lionel Messi, Pelé, and Diego Maradona. I think Pelé was probably the tallest at 5'7.5". I mean,
yeah,
nobody could catch those guys. They were outthinking everybody out there. Their technique was unbelievable. But you don't necessarily have to, be 6'5" and 320 pounds or 7 feet and dunking on people's heads. I mean, look, Mac McClung, talk about one of the greatest dunkers ever. He's 6'2", 185 pounds. He's a big guy. But for the
yeah,
NBA, he could be considered a defensive liability at 6'2". So,
yeah,
it's amazing. But ultimately, it's a sport that people of all ages, all sizes, both genders can play. And it's relatively easy access as long as you have a ball and a field or a space. It doesn't necessarily have to be grass. It could be a playground with pavement. We see it all the time, kids playing in the playgrounds in New York City.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny to think about how certain sports are impacted by height. Like the average height of an NBA player is like 6'7", I believe. And then like for football, like in the NFL, it kind of depends by position. But then like you look at our neighbors up north in Canada, Doug Flutie is ranked as like the greatest CFL player, I believe, and he's like 5'8.5". I'm taller than him and I'm about 6'1", but he could probably throw a football better than me.
And he was a phenomenal athlete. He could dunk too.
Oh yeah. Um, I'm 6'1", sadly cannot dunk. Um,
Yet. There's still time, Justin.
well, I'm 26, but I have the knees of like a 47-year-old, so I don't know how long that's gonna last. But obviously we're coming towards the end here. Um, 5, maybe 10 minutes at most. But I kind of have two final questions I want to ask you. Obviously, the first one being, obviously the MLS is in this kind of great position now to kind of grow moving forward. I mean, Messi brings in a lot of eyes. He also brings in a lot of sponsorships. I mean, I've seen him doing commercials with Lowe's and everything, and him doing the Apple TV series. Um, the first question being, where does MLS kind of go from here?
Yeah, great question. I mean, look, I'll go back to 30 plus years ago, the 1994 FIFA World Cup, which came to the United States, still the highest average attendance for a World Cup in the history of World Cups. It's over 68,000 fans per game. That record will be broken in 2026 because we have incredible facilities here. But
Yeah,
but part of the World Cup coming here is FIFA said you had to have a Division One professional soccer league, which we didn't have at the time. And that World Cup was a transformative moment that really changed the landscape of soccer in North America and ultimately spurred a lasting legacy in the creation of MLS. We're in our 30th season, 1 year away from the 2026 World Cup. We think we've made good on the vision of creating a true soccer nation in the United States based on all the key metrics, certainly elevated the sport in Canada. But I always tell people, I'm like, soccer's time is here, but the best is yet to come. And for Major League Soccer, the growth we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years has been phenomenal. Big credit to our owners, the players on the field, and the fans. Major League Soccer is now considered one of the top leagues in the world, and we gauge that on three to four key criteria. Certainly the quality of the play. Having guys like Messi, having a guy like Kevin Sullivan, best young player in the world in our league makes a difference. We look at the valuation of our enterprise. As I mentioned, 20 of the top 50 most valuable soccer clubs in the world are in Major League Soccer. So we fit that criteria there. And then ultimately the relevance of our clubs, as I mentioned, the second highest attended league in the world last year for total attendance behind the Premier League. And then certainly the passion of our fans. And you go to an MLS match and you see the supporters, in the end zone chanting and singing the whole game. And that certainly exists. But we're on a path to becoming one of the top leagues in the world. We're certainly among the top 10 and rising each and every year. So it's an exciting time.
yeah, it is very exciting. And the last question I have for you is, it's kind of an ask yourself question. I like to end the interview on these types of questions. Is obviously we've talked about a lot and we've covered a lot in this short time of an interview. Um, but obviously we haven't been able to cover everything. I haven't been able to ask you everything that you would like to talk about. So these last few minutes that we have, what's something that you really want to say that you haven't got a chance to say yet?
Wow, that's open-ended.
Yeah.
First, I want to say thanks again for having me on. Really credit to what you and your colleagues do up at Siena. But I would say again, it's the most exciting period for soccer in North America. And I would tell people check out the FIFA Club World Cup this summer. The Club World Cup, we talk about baseball's World Series, and I'm a big baseball fan. Mets, Yankees. Actually, I grew up mainly in Atlanta, so I'm a big Braves fan. And baseball has the World Series, but the true World Series will be this summer when 32 clubs will be coming to the United States in June and July, and they'll be competing in the FIFA Club World Cup. Now, we're fortunate we have two of those 32. Seattle and Inter Miami will be competing against the world's best clubs, the likes of Real Madrid, Manchester City, Paris Saint-Germain, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, Atletico Madrid. The list goes on and on. And it's going to be phenomenal. The first game is in mid-June. It's going to be down at Hard Rock Stadium, Inter Miami versus a team from Egypt. It's going to be in 11 MLS markets in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The final is going to be at MetLife Stadium here in New Jersey, the same place as the final for the 2026 World Cup. So I would tell people go check out the Club World Cup this year. It's got $1 billion prize purse. It's going to be a pretty cool event.
Wow, it sounds fantastic. But that's about as much time as we have tonight. So I just want to say this has been Justin Kenny with WBCR 88.3 The Saints with Dan Courtemanche. So, Dan, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Justin. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. And everybody out there in Radio Land, have a good one.